Hey, Pastor Josh here. We're reading Exodus chapter 32, verses 1 through 16, and we need to trust what God says, not what we see. Trust what God said, not what you see. It'd be very wise for us to believe the words that God tell us rather than trusting what our eyes see, because indeed God is trustworthy. Indeed, God is up to something. He has a plan, and if He promises to be with us, if He promises us heaven, then we should be trusting Him and not necessarily what is going around, not necessarily what's going around us. And this is the problem that the Israelites had when Moses was way up on the top of Mount Sinai, meeting with the Lord, learning about the temple and the garments that he was going to have the Israelites make. He was up there for a long time, 40 days and 40 nights, the Bible tells us. He was up there a long time, and the Israelites said, "We don't know what's happened to Moses." They make a terrible decision. Let's see about this terrible decision, a famous, infamous decision that they've made. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, "Up, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses," you hear the disdain in their voices. "As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." Of course, he was up there receiving from the Lord commands, in particular, receiving from the Lord commands on how they were to put together the tabernacle, the tent of meeting in which the Lord would dwell with them. And so the people were trusting their eyes. They were not trusting their ears. Remember, they heard God Himself speak from Mount Sinai. They heard the Ten Commandments spoken from Him. They saw the power of the Lord and how so quickly they're going away from Him and they're making gods of their own making. They're going to have Aaron make gods. So Aaron said to them, "This is terrible. Take off the rings of gold that are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." And Aaron does it. So all the people took off rings of gold that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. Aaron, who's going to be the high priest, said, "Hey, give me all your gold. I'll make you a god." And he received the gold from their hand and fashioned it. Notice, look at this closely. He received the gold and he fashioned it with a graving tool. He had to take a great pains and great effort to do this. Remember, God said He had already blessed uh, people within the people of Israel to make the temple. And now Aaron is using his gifts to make a golden calf. And they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." How silly. Now they're saying that these statutes are the ones that did it. Not the great God that divided the Red Sea. It's this statue of a cow, of a baby cow. When Aaron saw this, what did he do? He built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord." They're saying that God Himself is this golden calf. And they rose up early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. By implication, that rise up to play gives us the idea of sexual promiscuity. They are doing terrible, impure things. That phrase there, "rise up to play." It's not that they were playing hopscotch or getting up and playing a game of basketball. No, this is a sexual promiscuity that they are up to. Verse 7, "And the Lord said to Moses, Go down, for your people whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way that I commanded them. They have made for themselves a golden calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." All because they were trusting what they were seeing rather than trusting the God who spoke to them. And the Lord said to Moses, "I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people." Remember, this is the same people that said, "Yes, we're going to obey everything you tell us to do. Yes, we'll do it already." So quickly, before the very tablets of stone have come down, the Ten Commandments are written by the finger of God before Moses has ever come down and given to them in person. They've already rebelled against the Lord. They are a stiff-necked people. This is going to be a term that is going to be used of the people of Israel over and over and over again. the prophets in particular will grab a hold of this word, stiff-necked people. The images of a animal that is not being pulled where it needs to go, very resistant, very stubborn. Verse 10, now therefore let me alone. That's what God says, leave me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, in order that I may make a great nation of you. I'm going to kill them all, and I'm going to make you a great nation. Now notice, the Lord is, of course, testing Moses, and the Lord is seeing what he will do. And we're going to see the character of Moses shine in this moment. Verse 11, but Moses implored the Lord his God and said, this is a good example for us to follow. He is praying to the Lord and says, please don't do it. So here's what Moses says. O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Well, it seems silly to ask that. He told them it's a golden calf down there. Why should the Egyptians say, with evil intent did he bring them out to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your burning anger and relent from this disaster against your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, or Jacob, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said to them, I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have promised I will give to your offspring, and they shall inherit it forever. And the Lord relented from the disaster that he had spoken of bringing on his people. We see the Lord changes his mind. The Lord forgives the people of Israel because Moses prayed. Now, this is an image, of course, of Jesus's own great prayer on our behalf, and not just his great prayer, but his own sacrifice. Indeed, our sin must be dealt with, but God the Son says, do not burn them with your anger. Instead, I will offer myself as a offering. I will absorb the anger of Almighty God so that we can destroy sin and cleanse the people. It is only Jesus that could take the sin on himself and actually then absorb the wrath of God, and thereby destroying sin and satisfying the justice of God. So we see in this great prayer of Moses, we also see an image, a precursor, a type of Jesus, of saying, this is the intercessor. This is the person standing in the gap. And I also wonder, who is it that you need to be standing in the gap? We all got numbers. If you remember, last Sunday is when I'm recording this. Here's my number right here, 24. Remember, we had 25 of them. Who's your one? Who's your number that you are praying for? What number is it that you're praying for? And what person are you praying for? Just like Moses prayed on behalf of the people of Israel, perhaps you should be praying for somebody and asking the Lord to save their souls. What a great rejoicing that would be when we see that happen. So then Moses turned and went down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, tablets that were written on both sides. On the front and on the back they were written, the 10 commandments. The tablets were the work of God. The writing was the writing of God, engraved on the tablets. He wrote it with his very finger, as we read in our previous reading. I pray that has been a blessing to you, and I'll see you all in the next video.